Hi and welcome to the Hubb. Today we have a very interesting person, Dr. Basil Bunting. An amazing person. You're going to be listening to him, you're going to be glued to this. I'll tell you what, it's going to be an experience. So tune in. Now, if there's anything that you need in terms of relationships for the future, please contact Dr. Bunting. He is easily available. So we're going to talk on topics that are generally affected by people, relationships that people struggle with. So Dr. Bunting, an expert in the field, is going to answer these questions so people will benefit. So Dr. Bunting, welcome.
Thanks, Hanshi.
Now, Dr. Bunting, just a couple of questions on the benefits of, what are the benefits of friendship and love relationships? Can you enlighten the listeners, please?
Yes, Hanshi. The benefits are such that one realizes that relationships are the most important aspect of our lives. The first benefit is health. That's mental health and physical health. People in good relationships are healthier. The second one is there's resilience. People tend to get sick less often. Should they become sick, there's also a quicker recovery from illness. So they've got a whole lot of health benefits of having a good relationship. But then there's also the benefit for the children. Children do better if in a good relationship. And finally, people who have good relationships tend to have more wealth. They do better financially. So, generally speaking, having a good relationship is as good, if not better, than going to a gym, because there's longevity as well. People with good relationships live 10 to 15 years longer than the ordinary person.
Wow, that's interesting. So people actually live longer.
They actually live longer.
Yeah, just by having a good relationship, family relationship.
That's it.
Wow, that's interesting. It's something I didn't know, and so I'm going to start having a better relationship with my family. So I want to live longer and get the benefits of it. So This is interesting, very interesting. So what about emotional states? Individual emotional states. How did that affect relationships?
Yeah, in a relationship, we're talking about two people. Very much like playing tennis and you've got a tennis partner. You both got to be in a certain shape. You both got to be good enough and skilled enough to be able to perform well. So the state that all of us have to have is calmness, love. We're looking for those kind of emotions. And the state of calmness, we do get negative emotions as well from time to time. But what I'm talking about is, what emotions do you live in most of the time? And we're looking at positive emotions. Certain people live in negative emotions most of the time, either being angry or worried or depressed. But we're looking at positive emotions, and therefore it's each individual's responsibility to control their own emotions for the relationship to work. One aspect of emotions is posture. People having the correct posture tend to have better emotions because the two work together. If you have correct posture, sitting up straight, shoulders back, then what happens is that your chemicals in your brain, certain chemicals get increase, like dopamine. So just ordinary posture. The other things that one can do to have good state in terms of emotional state is to put a positive meaning to life's challenges. When anything happens in life, you can you decide the meaning. And so if you decide a good meaning on it, it changes your life. I'll just give you an example. My situation was, worked as a psychiatrist in New Zealand and couldn't fly because of COVID. And so my reaction to that, my negative reaction was, I can't fly, I'm having a hard time. But when I changed the meaning to the universe is giving me a good chance, an opportunity to bridge my training from psychiatry into personal development, which is what I'm in at the moment, the same situation has changed. So the meaning is one of the things. The second one is the focus, what we focus on. If we're focusing on negative stuff, you feel bad. If you're focusing on good stuff, you feel better. So we control our thoughts.
Wow.
So we can control our emotional states, and each one, it's our responsibility to be the best person for the relationship.
Wow, that's interesting. So what about the state of calmness? What do you suggest people do to arrive at that state of calmness? I mean, when I look at you, I always see you as this calm person, always in control of you. So, how do you reach that state of calmness?
Well, I also see calmness in you, Hanshi, when I see you. I think we've got there's certain things that I do. It's having rituals for calmness, and it's important to start the day in a way that leads to calmness, and that is by meditation for like 5 to 10 minutes, and then exercise as well helps to increase calmness. But the meditation is I think the most important one, because you have deep breathing, and then the exercise as well that follows after that.
Right.
Yeah.
So Dr. Bunting, now if people listening to you today say, you know what, I want to reach out to Dr. Bunting to get some technique on meditation, are you happy to share that with them?
Yes.
Yes. So okay. All right. That's amazing. So people feel free. Dr. Bunting is easily available. For this, he can guide you with meditation to get a state of calmness, which I think is right. It is important. It's important to have a calm state of mind. Now, what about communication styles? How does it affect relationships?
Yeah, communication styles differ amongst people. Some of us are more what we call visual people, and we're the people that speak faster and have gestures. So when we record the world mainly in our visual area of our brain, so we are visual people. Other people are more auditory. They focus more on what they hear, and still other people are tactile, kinesthetic, where they sense the world more with how they feel. And when these people talk, you can pick up what style they're in. For example, people that are visual will tend to say expressions like I see something, I have insight, I can see something. Whereas people that are auditory will always speak about hearing, listen here when they talk to you, they're asking you to listen. Whereas the tactile people will tend to speak about feelings. They will say, I feel sad, or I feel. They are more feeling people. So where this comes in relationships is that if you've got a person, for example, who is visual, predominantly, we all a little bit of all these things, but there's a predominant one. If that person's predominant representation is visual, then if you are whispering love words to that person, it's a bit of a waste, because they want to see things, they want to see. And the same way as if you're looking at someone's eyes, you're looking into your partner's eyes, but they're basically auditory people. It's like not the best way of communicating with them. So I'm saying you need to know what the communication style is.
So how do you discover that?
As I say, by their words, and you can see their preference. It's like right hand and left-handedness. we can use both hands, but you know one hand is more dominant.
Predominant, yes, yes. Oh, that's interesting. So where do our separate individual human needs fit into our relationships?
Yeah, we all, human beings, are driven by 6 human needs. In the past we regarded, when we were following mainly Freud, Freud said we had 2 human drives, which was sex and aggression. You simplify things to sex and aggression. But since then, research and different psychological schools of thought have come up with 6. We all have 6 needs that drive us. And depending on our needs, each one we may be chasing different needs with our partner, and that may cause problems in our relationship because we've got different needs. I'll just give you a quick rundown of the needs. The first need is certainty. Some people, that's their main need. And what's important is what is the dominant 2 needs of a person. So some people, it's certainty. Those people have got to be sure of everything. They want to keep things the same. And that can cause problems in a relationship if people don't want to change at all because people can't grow. That's certainty. So that's the second one is uncertainty. You get some people, these are the people that are jumping out of airplanes, etc. But uncertainty also is shown by just liking a surprise, doing different things. That is the uncertainty component. Sometimes you have a clash. If you've got a person, if one person's main drive is to be certain and the other one's drive is to be uncertain, so you can see there's a big clash here on activities. The one wants to go to certain things and the other one wants to just do what they've always done. You see what I'm saying? So that can cause disagreements. The third need is what we call significance. We all have a need to be significant, to be special, to be separate from other people. That's significance. And in the Western society, significance is a big thing. That's why men, especially amongst men, that's why men work to become very rich. That's significance, to show that people are significant. But then it clashes with the next need, which is love and attachment. That one is the more... Because if you have a person who is too focused on significance, then they work 24 hours a day, and which affects the love relationship. Okay? And then of course, so those are the 4 needs, 4 basic needs. Everyone needs those things. And whenever we look at people, we see all the problems, but underneath, you find that one of those needs has not been met, and that's what's causing the problems. And then the last 2, of course, are spiritual needs. The need for growth, that's a very important need, and the need for contribution. So those are the 6 needs. And depending on the couple and how they meet their needs, there's potential for friction between the different people.
Wow, it's very, very interesting. This is powerful stuff. This is really powerful stuff. It opens up a new dimension of thinking. You know, oh, wow. I'm enjoying this today, Dr. Bunting. It's wonderful that you're sharing your thoughts on this very important topic on relationships. So I would like to ask you now, how did you help a patient to escape abusive relationship?
Yeah, abuse is a big problem, and so I'll give you this example of a patient. This was a lady in hospital who was making suicidal attempts, you know, taking tablets and cutting herself, suicidal attempts, and she kept coming into the hospital. And the problem for her was that she had this boyfriend that she had lived with, and but it was a bad relationship, so she told him to go, and he went, but he would come back every now and then. And when he came back, she didn't have the strength to sort of tell him to really go. She couldn't, and he kept coming. And so, in response to that, she would try and kill herself. She was getting so desperate about the whole thing. So she came into the hospital with the possibility of that we're going to admit her because she's made a suicide attempt and in regard to the problem. So I went to see her with 2 nurses, and what I did with her was to engage her. We have archetypes, resources in us. These are described by Jung. The resources that we have are the warrior. We have a warrior in us. We have a magician in us. That's your intuition. And then we have the sovereign as well in us. So what I did with her was to ignite the warrior in her. And when we say that, it's to get her to dig deep into herself and be truly herself. And so I role-played being her boyfriend that she didn't like. I don't know what his name was, Hugo would say. And so I had asked her how Hugo treats her, and Hugo is to put her down and tell her she's an ugly bitch, etc., etc. And so I then acted Hugo, and then got her to bring out her warrior woman. And we had practiced that, how she expresses herself. And of course, she started at first was just talking to me in a softish voice, and then I got her to tell her exactly how she should be really her angry self.
Wow.
And there she was. So I was in her face, and then she started taking off, and she was shouting at me, and she was, in fact, she was screaming so loud at me to get away, but the security guards came to the door and knocked. And the security guards wanted to know, are you guys all right? I said, no, we're all right. And what was interesting, that experience of her telling him off like that, it just changed things.
She expressed herself, she expressed her feelings.
Yeah.
Mm.
She was able to go home. Yeah.
That is powerful. That is powerful. Here we are now, you've changed somebody's life.
That's right.
You know,
That's
you've
right.
made a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. You made a difference to somebody's life. How powerful is that? You know, we all want to make differences to our life. And you know, just having the right keys to open the locks.
That's right.
Yeah. Having the keys. So, how did you manage, for example, a young man with strong feelings of jealousy? How would you manage that in a young person?
Yeah, there was this case which will illustrate how jealousy is handled. And we're not talking about just, there is a normal amount of jealousy, and there's pathological jealousy, and then of course there's what we call delusional jealousy. So there's 3 stages. So it's pathological jealousy, where it's really extreme and it's harming the relationship. Yeah, and the man can't control himself. But what had happened here is that this was a young couple, and they had a child, and this guy, what he did, he had an affair with a woman, and then his wife decided to pay him back, and so she went with someone, and he came to the house where she was with this particular person, and he saw her there with this guy, and so he was quite badly affected. But then she realized that that was the wrong thing for her to do, because she didn't really like this guy that she had decided to go with. So she decided, no, she's going back to her husband. She really loves her husband. And of course he loves her, so he's taking her back. But the problem was, this thing was really bugging him. What had happened, that his wife had gone with another guy. And so, but he wanted his wife. But it was worrying him so much. For example, at work in the day, it was torturing him in his head all the time. And one of the things that he was doing was he would text her and swear her on the text, and then send her a second text to apologize, etc. It was really, he was really distressed about this.
Mm.
And so they came in, both of them. And what I did with them was to, it's a strategy really. A lot of our jealousy comes from our insecurity from childhood, where we've had difficult times,
Right.
either excessive discipline, in our days it was discipline, but in these days a lot of it would qualify as abuse really.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of insecurity in his early childhood, and then so I did a procedure with him, which is really, you go back to your childhood in your memory, and then in your mind, and then you go back to your 6-year or 8-year-old child where the real trouble was, and then you give that child love and talk to that child.
Gee, that's powerful.
And it's a funny thing. You do that, and that it's okay now. You're an adult now. It's me coming from an adult like Basil coming to see the young Basil, but everything is all right now. It's no more like how it was then. Just that experience, and then you get back into your consciousness again.
Right.
So he did that a number of times. So I saw him in a week's time after that. So he says to me, well, what had happened is that amazingly that the whole problem had just gone right down. There was no. And so he said to me, at the beginning he really didn't believe this thing. It sounded too ridiculous to do. But he says, yes, we were so desperate, you know, that nothing was working. Yeah, so that was there's techniques that assist people with jealousy.
Yeah,
that's one of the
great
powerful
technique.
Yeah.
That's a great technique.
Yeah.
Going back and you're actually creating a bridge, eh?
That's right, and it works. Yeah, Well, human beings, we're actually more complicated than we think we are. Yeah. More complex.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's what people say about me all the time. I'm more complicated. Oh my goodness. So, what are the magic components of a love relationship?
Or a good relationship, and this comes from research by a guy called Dr. John Gottman, he runs what they call a love lab, and because they measure people's pulses, they video them, couples that are arguing, and so it's a scientifically based thing, and they've been following couples for the last 20 years,
Right.
from 18 to 80 years, so that's a real standard thing on love.
Right.
And what they've discovered is that there's 3 things really that are the magic of love. And the first one is trust. And trust really is having the best for both people, you know, in mind all the time. It's for both people. You know, the benefits for both people are being held by both people. That's the trust. They trust each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the second one is commitment, and commitment really is just as the word says, you know, you commit to the person, but it also includes cherishing the person and continually complimenting the person and making the person feel special, because this is a special relationship, all right? So that's and then the third one is calmness.
Yeah.
Calmness. The thing is with men. In the past, men have greater difficulty with calmness in a relationship. That's why men don't like to discuss relationship problems. It's mainly the women that bring the topic up.
That is true. Yes.
And men, Hanshi, in our ancestor days, we were hunters, and so we had to protect the family from danger. So what happened with that is that our flooding, our emotional reaction, we have an acute emotional reaction when there's danger. We're the ones, we attack, flight, fight. Our flight, fight reaction is much worse than the woman's. It's quicker and it's stronger. And women, they grew up in a collaborative environment where they were all in contact with each other, and that's why you find women tend to have a lot of relationships around, whereas men, tend to be on their own or have very small groups. But that reaction is, if there's a disagreement, the man can often interpret words as spears, literally spears, and react in a very angry way or anxious way. And so when we use the word flooding, and when they react like that, then the blood goes away from the cortex, which is where we think, and gets down to the emotional area of the thing. And so you don't even hear what the person is saying. You can't think straight. You see what I'm saying?
That is interesting.
So the calmness, so the people are arguing, but they're trying to solve the problem, but they can't solve it because the one person is not hearing what's going on, It's just not hearing what's going on. So,
wow.
And what's interesting with the relationships, with the studies, that they found they can actually tell which relationships will end up in divorce. And they found there's two things about that. The first one is they can tell if a person starts an argument, the startup, they call it the startup, in the first 3 minutes. If the harshness of the criticism is very, very strong in the first 3 minutes, that relationship is likely to end up in divorce. And they've got high figures like 90% prediction rate they've done.
Wow.
Yeah. So, because when you're arguing with someone, it normally starts at a lower key and it can escalate.
Right.
But when it starts on a high key in the first 3 minutes, so that's usually the one sign. The other sign is the ratio between negative emotions and positive emotions. Good relationships, even in conflict times, will have a ratio of 5 positive emotions versus 1 negative emotion.
Wow.
Whereas the bad relationships, it's actually almost 1 to 1. It's 0.8 to 1. So it's 1 to 1. So there's one. So there's every second comment is a negative comment. The first comment is a good comment. Second comment is a negative comment. So if you have that kind of ratio, we're looking at again a divorce rate is coming up.
Wow.
So
what a good assessment tool that is.
Yeah. So
I think every couple should have this, have this kind of knowledge and understanding. It'll certainly help it.
Yeah.
What is the difference between a happy relationship and a troubled relationship?
Well, as I've just stated, the ratio of positive emotions versus negative emotions. That's really the main thing. And the startup in arguments, whether you have a very strong startup in the first 3 minutes of arguments. People with good relationships also have arguments. They also have screaming matches. There's no relationship that doesn't have that. Mm-hmm. But the bad relationships are the ones where it's extreme in the first 3 minutes. And the ratio of positive to negative is very, very low, really. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I got an interesting question for you, Dr. Bunting.
Yeah.
Courtship. How do you know if a girl is interested in the boy?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, Hanshi. And I've had youngsters also asking me that question. How do they know? Well, the thing with romance and courtship is that there's a lot of subconscious stuff, unconscious stuff. It's not all, we can't teach you just what to do. A lot of it is unconscious and subconscious. And it's very interesting, there's a lot of subconscious and unconscious stuff in relationships. For example, they did a study in, I think it was in Turkey, where they had like 5,000 lap dancers, women in a nightclub. And what they did with these women, they assessed, the woman recorded their menstrual cycle, you know, and then they recorded their salary, because they had a salary, and then they recorded their tips. So they had these three things matched together: the salary, the tips, and their menstrual cycle. Right. So on the menstrual cycle, you could tell when they were ovulating. And what was interesting is that when the people are ovulating, they got 80% more tips than when they were not. So there was something in the woman that was making the men more generous with their money. Subconscious stuff. So getting back to courtship, Hanshi. Courtship is an interesting thing because it's men. We men say we go for girls, but in actual fact, we don't go for girls. Girls go for us. It's led, the courtship dance is led by the woman, and she sends out signals, and we got to pick up the signals. If we pick up the wrong signals, then we're in trouble. But we got to pick up the signals. And so, it's led by the woman, but and the woman also decides on which person she's going to send the signals to. She's not going to send the positive signal if you don't qualify. Wow. So how does a man qualify? What attracts a woman to a man? Well, the big thing is confidence. And so men, which is demonstrated by very good posture, expansive posture, standing up straight, looking people in the eyes, smiling. There's certain confidence things. Right. Putting your arm over another guy's shoulder, which is again a demonstration of confidence. So confidence is a big thing. If you are not confident, and so the women are aware of it, and again they also pick it up subconsciously. It's not even conscious. They just know that's it. And so they send signals. And some of the signals to show you that the girl is interested in you, like say if you're in a party setting, you'll find that she would look at you and look away. Look at you and look away. It's like she looks at you and you catch her looking at you and then you look away. She looks away. Of course then when she's doing that, you hope there isn't Brad Pitt standing behind you, that she's actually looking at him. Looking at him and looking away. It's got to be you. Yeah. And then she's also other things. She starts pruning herself, touching her hair. That's a sign that she's sending to you, that she's interested, signing it. Also her eye contact, she will look at you. When you get close to each other, she'll look at you and not look elsewhere, look at you. Also there is posture. She leans towards you. Foot, when she's standing, her foot points towards you. Her shoulder points towards you. The subtle, as I said, these things are so subtle, but they're there. So she's really sending you the signals. You're going to pick it up. On the other hand, there's some signals that tell you that, look, she's not interested. And one of the signals is yawning. You know, if you're talking to a girl and she yawns and she has a second yawn, maybe it's time to move on. Another sign that she's really not interested in you is that when she's talking to you, she's looking around the room or looking over your head at someone else. That woman's not interested. Or you're talking to her and then she just walks away while you're talking to her. Then she's not interested. And it's important to accept that a person is not interested in you and not persist, because we're looking for mutual attraction.
Right.
Yeah, we're looking for mutual attraction. But there are things you can do as well to sort of increase the chemistry between you and the girl, and that is you can imitate her postures, imitate her voice. For example, the speed of her voice, you know, the loudness of her voice. If you just speak the same way as her, it's like she identifies, you have identified with her, and we love people that are like us, who like her. Yes. And even posture, you can, if she's standing in a particular way, you can stand in a similar way. It doesn't have to be everything, but it's all subconscious, and the person really gets to like you.
Wow.
And then of course there's also the smell. which of course the modern, the apps don't have. The smell is really important because we have fair hormones, sex hormones coming out of our skin, and again, it's unconscious. We actually like the smell of the person, and they like the smell of us, and so the compatibility is there. It's at a chemical level. You don't know why you like the person, but it's actually like the smell. And in fact, they've done a study where they've taken women and men, both heterosexual and gay people, and they've got them to sleep in shirts for like 3-4 days, and then they've taken the shirts, labeled them, and then brought them into a particular place where people could examine them. They put them in a bag, and then you open the bag and you smell the perspiration,
the odor,
the odor.
The odor.
And the people are able to, with that, they were able to actually identify people that they got on with.
Wow.
Yeah, they got on with. So smell is a very strong thing, and that's why on the apps there's no smell. You don't smell a person.
Gee, now I understand why my relationships didn't work. Oh my goodness, this is powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Now tell me, I'm going to ask you a question.
Mm.
How should one act on the first date? You know, the first date is like a honeymoon in a single day, right?
That's right. Yeah, first date is a really important date because it's a date of it's
connection.
Yeah, it's sorting out each other really, and some people suggest that the first date, a good thing to do with the first date is to choose a sort of an exciting activity, because it excites. The person is excited, and so that will be easier for you. But it doesn't matter where you go to. The first date is certain things. Again, it's what is a woman looking for in a man? She's looking for trustworthiness. That's what a woman is looking for in a man. And what men want is really no fighting. Remember, I told you they've got problems with handling stress.
Yeah,
men don't want fights, and of course, men want more sex. So that's the two things that men want. So I've lost my train of thought now.
It's the first date.
Yeah, the first date. Yeah. Don't lose your train of thought in the first date. Just don't do that. So your behavior in the first date, again, it's confident behavior. And the thing about the date is that the biggest challenge is that you must be you, not putting on an appearance. Because because that's the most important thing. Because if it's going to be successful, the person's going to has to have you. They can't have somebody else, behavior for the date. It's got to be genuinely you. Because if you present yourself in a slightly different way to who you are, when you go out with the girl, she will actually find that out, and then she will lose trust in you. You are not the person you. So that's vital that you are genuinely you yourself in the relationship. And of course the usual things, make sure that your personal hygiene is good. and then also your behavior. This old-fashioned behavior of pulling out a chair for a woman opening the car door, those things still matter. People, I know we've got this thing these days, people think it still matters. And even walking on the side of her, walking on the cars, on the roadside, if you're walking on a pavement, so you're nearer the road, it's a protective kind of thing. Because that's what a woman is looking for, trustworthiness, and so that she can be protected.
Would you say that's a subconscious?
All subconscious, that's the thing about it. Yeah. It's a lot of subconscious stuff going on. Yeah. And then the main thing is you got to attune to her, and attune to her is just like following the letters of a tune. That you need to give it attention, and is really by looking at her, listening to her. There's no point in you speaking about her, about yourself, the main focus of the conversation must be your partner. You know,
Right.
it must be, the focus must be on your partner, and then attention by looking at her. So attention is really good. And when I say attention, I'm talking about full attention. These days we've got technology. You put your phone off, but you can't have the phone off on and or the TV on.
I get into trouble all the time. We go to dinners with my wife, and I'm on the phone.
No, you can't.
You know,
full attention.
And it upsets her, you know. So
it does, because it's like you don't care enough. You know, by having the phone and things. And it's really important for them. Your full attention is really important. And then turning to her and looking at her. So that's why we need to not have all this technology around us when we are dating. The next thing, of course, is understanding her. That's the big thing when you're talking to her and listening to her. She's looking for, does this man get me? Does he understand me? You know, understanding. We're not talking about fixing a person, which men want to do most time.
Yeah.
You know. And then having some empathy as well. In other words, you can feel what she's feeling. Yeah. So it's that, and if that goes well like that, then it normally is the right sort of fit. Of course, if it's going to be a long-term relationship, then in the discussion, certain topics will come up that are always important to be discussed early, maybe first relationship, maybe second meeting. Things like, does she want children? Do you want children? Big things. Big things need to be discussed early, because religion is another big one. Because those are the things that cause serious problems afterwards if they don't necessarily have to be discussed in the first date, but within the first few dates, you know. Also, just people's ambitions, where they're going, what they're planning to do, because there's no point in starting a relationship with somebody who's flying out to New York in June or so, in a couple of months' time. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an assessment, really.
Yeah. You know, Dr. Bunting, listening to you today, gee, I wish I heard you 10 years ago. You know, not that my relationship is bad, but it's fantastic. I have a wonderful wife. But I could have improved myself as a husband, as a father, you know. And I'm sure many people that are listening to you today are saying the same thing. Could, you know, if they had that opportunity of listening to you earlier, it would have saved their marriage and saved their relationship. So it's not too late, though. You know, they can still contact you. They still can contact you and get your advice and your help, and you're always available. I reckon, you know, spend an hour with Dr. Bunting, and certainly he will help you get through your trials and tribulations, if you have any, or even build up your relationship with your partner, be it male or female. So, you know, don't lose the opportunity. You know, we have experts in the field, and Dr. Bunting is an expert. He's not only a psychologist, but he's also a medical doctor. So, you know, he comes from both fields, an expert in both fields, and very cluey, very learned, and he understands relationships a lot more than most. So I would say contact Dr. Bunting and get in touch with him. Dr. Bunting, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here today. Any final words for people?
I must just say, I think relationships are the most important aspect of your life. So that when you're balancing out everything, relationships are the most important thing in your life. Yeah.
Fantastic. So everyone, you've been listening to a broadcast here from the Hubb, Help Beyond Better. Now this relationship topic. Now you understand beyond better. You understand beyond better. So this topic with Dr. Bunting today is to make you a better person. It's certainly made me a better person. That mobile phone of mine is not It's going to be in my pocket. It's not going to be on the table. That's for sure. And I'm going to be looking at my wife throughout the entire conversation. We're sitting and having a meal. It's going to be her totally. Thank you, Dr. Bunting. So, I'm Hanshi Naidu, meditation and yoga teacher, SMA, Kyatsu, Reiki and Karate master. Here to bring you news, views and ideas and techniques from leaders in the field. As you had today, Dr. Bunting was really not just an ordinary guy. He's just, he's got the key. And you have the lock and he will open it for you. He will open up. So, feel free to talk to Dr. Bunting at any time. Call us. Now, is there anything, Dr. Bunting, that they can reach you at? Is there any forum that they can reach you at? Do you have a website or telephone number?
Yeah, I've got a website. Again, it's my name, Basil Bunting, Basil Bunting, Bunting. So I've got a website at Basil Bunting. Dr. Basil Bunting, and then they also can get me on my with the same name at Gmail and at my email. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The email address with the Gmail on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dr. Basil Bunting at gmail.com?
Or just Basil Bunting at gmail.com.
Oh, Basil Bunting at gmail.com.
All lowercase. Yeah.
Right. Fantastic, Dr. Bunting. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today. You've enlightened us all. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hanshi.
It's brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.